You can change the world. Yes, I'm speaking to you personally. In fact, I'm looking at you right now. Creepy, isn't it?
This is the Free Zone Communiqué, transmitting from Virginia's unoccupied sector. If you think smart cities, DEI, censorship, government intrusion, bug paste, and other left-wing nonsense are no longer a possibility, think again. We've won one election with slim majorities. Our work to rebuild a free and sane America has just begun.
Zone Communique here on the P4B, bringing hope to victims trapped behind the wire in blue cities. Today we're going to talk about several things. Let me start with a quick word about the reactions to the Texas flood. I've seen some terrible malicious behavior on the part of people, usually lefties on social media. I mean, look at the comments made about 10-7, for example. The desire to be a lowlife and prove it would be laughable in any other circumstances. But the people I speak of strive to be worthless. But the vile shit this week about those little girls caught in the floodwaters goes beyond any stupidity I've ever heard in any American of any stripe. We have people actually making race an issue. No one would care if they were little black girls, we are told. Well, jackasses. I think I'm right in assuming that most people reacted the way I did. When I heard kids were washed away in a flood while camping, I didn't picture an established campground staffed by professionals. I immediately assumed it was some kind of outward bound sort of thing, led by volunteers, definitely inner city folk, unfamiliar with such events. So the first thing I saw in my mind was little black girls. And it was just heartbreaking, just as much as it would be regardless. Not because they were white or not because they were black. I thought they were having a unique once-in-a-lifetime experience only to have it end with them terrified or dead. The popular charge among the left, born of the constant victim status they always pursue, was that Texans only turned out because we were talking about white girls. That, my friends, makes the people making that statement the most racist people you'll ever come across. The very lowest of the low. Another cadre of shitbirds were the people saying it wouldn't have happened if DJT didn't slash Noah. Nothing was slashed. There was some waste in the system due to be cut later this year or early next year, and the office responsible where Texas flooded was overmanned. That's in accordance with policy, before, during, and after the storm. Knowing better, many still exploited the death of the kids to tar political opponents. In this, I include that jackass, George Stephanopoulos. These people are more examples of what Tucker Carlson once said: we need to hold up to ridicule. We are morally bound to do so. This was the ugliest week in terms of rhetoric I've experienced in a long time. And a lot of it was coming from politicians. Some of the language they used, even I won't repeat here, but you've probably seen it on X or Facebook. How disgusting it is that we have such worthless failures representing Americans in any capacity.
Please hang up and try again.
At the bottom of the page, I'll leave links where you can find all our stuff. Wherever you get the P4B in the Free Zone, please follow, subscribe, leave reviews and comments, and share. This is how we grow. I'll leave a link to where you can support the P4B directly so you too can be a political party pooper. But the most pleasure you can get by supporting us is to shop Po River. I'll leave samples and links for that as well. Thanks to all our supporters and subscribers. This program note, as you have already deduced, because my fans are brilliant, John Matthews will not be with us this week. He had a pool emergency and will sit down with us at the end of the month. I'd like to have a pool emergency. We're still scheduled to have our All-Star Break special with Ron and Sam, which will probably drop over the weekend. You usually get your stuff from the P4B at work, so over the weekend, be sure to check in with us. And as I also say, share and subscribe. We are giving it our all to get in all 50 states. We are growing, but within the states we've already been in for a long time. And how the hell are we not in Tennessee or West by God, Virginia? That doesn't make sense. I want to paint my heat map completely orange. And it's still free to subscribe. I hope my tip jar and PoRiver.etsy.com will carry the site so I don't have to put up a paywall. So give me some love. You can change the world. Yes, I'm speaking to you personally. In fact, I'm looking at you right now. Creepy, isn't it? I know my segment title sounds like I've listened to Eric Clapton too much. Change the world. But it's true. First, the bad news. As you read this, remember, this is not an attack on gay people or even adult trans people. I realize that no matter what I'm going to say going in, people like the ones I spoke of in the previous segment will seek offense anyway. But this is a numbers game I'm speaking of now. There has been, for many years, a growing problem in this country and around the world. On the surface, it seems an insurmountable issue. When I lay it out for you, you may be tempted to say, oh my God, life is circling the toilet. It's hopeless. Only the latter exclamation is untrue. It isn't hopeless if you have an attention span greater than that of a gnat and you have just a sliver of guts and common sense. Through the denial of basic instincts, mass abortion on demand, teaching our kids a fascination with homosexuality, and breeding weak fertility, we have set up a demographic time bomb in the United States. Add to this the more recent Instagram fad regarding transsexuality. The result of all this is a rapidly declining birth rate. Even before you add infertility pumps, like the ones I listed above, we had a declining population. As a society, no one ever looked at the future and said, wow, how do we keep our prosperity if we don't have enough offspring to pursue that same prosperity? You can't blame the individual. No one ever looked at the situation and saw the trends. Not before. In fact, it was very trendy to say, oh my God, the world is a scary place. The planet is boiling. I can't bring a child into this world. Or other such drama queen rationalization to forestall parenthood and enjoy a more hedonistic pursuit. Further, adding to the problem is raising at least 2 generations of kids who spent entirely too much time in the cyber world, and boys being told that being boys or males being males is a bad thing. We have an army of males ages 15 to 30 who don't have the first idea how to even go on a simple date, much less relate to the opposite sex. The result is we have a rapidly aging population. Much of this population, despite warnings we've heard since the 1960s, decided that their Social Security was their retirement plan. Some of them are getting upset because, as they were told repeatedly throughout their entire adult lives, their Social Security check won't cover anything other than a poverty-level existence. there will soon be more of these ill-prepared people, along with all the others that receive Social Security, than there are people paying into the system meant to support the oldies. Already, we are down to below 2 workers or less per recipient. Social Security and Medicare will very soon gobble up our GDP. And it is all our fault. Through our ignorance and selfishness, we have created this world. The not so bad news is we are not the worst nation in the world with these problems. Other nations, like China and Russia, face collapse as nations for the same problems. In Russia's case, random drug and alcohol abuse were a huge aggravating influence. In China's case, they still think like Mao, and he was the king of national self destruction. So we're not the sickest horse in the glue factory. Let me break it down. Earlier, I said that we are breeding weak fertility. How is that possible? Well, as my go-to slash foil, Peter Zihan, has pointed out many times, you can't breed infertility, but you can breed weak fertility. For decades now, we have taken eggs from women who can't have babies for one reason or another, naturally, and fertilizing them with the sperm of the spouse. Sometimes, when the husband has a very low sperm count, a process can be used to collect what is there and fertilize the woman's egg. The procedure is now as common as baseball. This means that we are more and more every year creating children who are likely to have the same reproductive problems as their parents. We're also adding to our stock of low fertility adults through raising sedentary kids and feeding them dog shit for food every day. The boy's diet and activity level do impact the man's sperm count and libido. The University of Chicago, among many others, has established that processed food, especially sugary food, and foods high in chemical additives, absolutely lower sperm counts, while whole foods, including fruits, veggies, meats, and fish, enhance sperm count. With a two-income household and little time to spend on quality, we've raised at least 2 generations of young adults who now have less of a chance of making babies than the early to mid boomers did, in some cases, far less. Here's the really sick irony. Many young women are aborting their young. While couple A is trying to get pregnant, couple B are throwing their kids in a dumpster. These are people we need making babies right now. There are many women who have had more than one abortion on demand, not for medical reasons. This alone is a drag on healthy demographics. Women have been putting off childbirth into their late 30s and early 40s. It's harder for a woman to get pregnant and carry a child at such late stages, and harder to raise the little terror at those ages if you're not already quite fit. There is less horseplay with dad, fewer long walks with mom. There's more time in childcare. I'd like to see a study in the damage to family relationships just from that phenomenon. Okay, now the whole gay trans thing. Keep in mind, as we discuss this segment, I'm not talking about same-sex experiences here. There are a lot of people who get their freak on and a threesome who have absolutely no desire to settle down into a same-sex relationship. And I'm not discussing kids right now who are parading around dressed as they think the opposite sex dresses, the way kids used to be enamored with the goth look. The goth kids took themselves very seriously. There were books written about the fad as if it were a productive way of life. They always believed they would have dyed black hair and black fingernails for the rest of their days. So important is the experience to them as adolescents. Then, of course, before they even graduated high school, they were all bright and multicolored again. And so it will be, or should be, for most of the kids who play dress up today as the other sex. But The fad is being kept alive in an unhealthy fashion with kids that have severe emotional problems and kids on the spectrum who have gone down that rabbit hole and gotten snared in the fantasy trans culture. Too often, before the fad is allowed to run its course, irresponsible adults, groomers would be the only honest term, actively push these kids into actually believing they are members of the opposite sex. Quack shrinks feed the delusion. Quack surgeons mutilate the kids and put them on hormones for life. These kids will never know what a normal life is. They will certainly never know what it means to be a member of the opposite sex. They can speculate, they can imitate, but they will never actually know. Instead of being assisted with coping skills for whatever problems these kids suffered from to begin with, or patiently disabused of the Asperger's induced obsession with junk science, these kids now are left with infinitely more problems than they had when they met the groomers and the quacks. In terms of this discussion, none of the mutilated kids will ever have a normal, healthy sex life. They'll never know what an orgasm feels like. They will never be free of the hormone treatments, which will create complications as they age. And they can't make babies. There were very few actual gay people in the 70s and 80s. There was enough to create a sense of community anyway. And yes, there were people who were afraid to come out, but the total of those people and the out gays was far less than 5% of the total population. I repeat, I am talking about actual gays and lesbians here, not kids experimenting or adults getting kinky. And this concept, you have to acknowledge, is counter-instinctive. Whatever causes a kid to mature as a gay person, it might be quite benign. It might even be a nice thing, like a relationship at a key time in life with someone of the same sex, and the idea was imprinted. But it can't be denied that the lifestyle supplants instinct. And like the trans fad, certainly since Ellen came out, there has been an odd hero worship of people who just say they're gay. The idea has become something to evangelize or aspire to. There were times in society, in most eras, where no one made a fuss either way. In Victorian England, and again post-war England, it was considered unladylike or ungentlemanly to mention one's sexuality or comment on it. But it was rather easy to know who were the boys who liked the boys. By the 80s in the US, most people didn't give a damn about the issue. But soon after, it became something to aspire to. Society created a false incentive to be gay. This created confusion for a lot of people. That's not the end of the world, but it forestalled parenthood for some and eliminated it for others. This is not a shot at gay people. I am talking numbers here, trends. As for the trans issue, numbers of people who suffered from true gender dysphoria were vanishingly few. A short time ago, a tiny fraction of 1%. After pioneering the first clinical transaction surgeries, the leading surgeon, also a clinical psychiatrist, stopped performing the procedure, finding that he was helping no one with it. And in all those cases, we were talking about adults. There was no one in their lives at that time telling them, you ought to get castrated or get your tits cut off. The trend we see in trans world today is far more artificial and opportunistic than any trends we ever saw in the gay community. For most males, the concept is a personal kink. It's an urge to shock. For women, especially those on the spectrum, it's an attempt to stop some suffering that has nothing to do with their sex. For kids, to pursue the idea of changing one's sexual reality is unforgivable child abuse, in my considerable opinion. The overall effect of these issues is exacerbating a trend that would have been with us without any gay movement or trans movement or shitty nutrition. As the nation became more successful, we had fewer kids. As Peter Zion points out many times, when you live on a farm or you are poor, kids represent a source of labor or income. As we become more affluent, often gravitating to more populated areas, kids are more like expensive furniture. We're going to have a shrinking young cohort anyway, but by our own choices as individuals, as a society, we have made the problem much worse than it needed to be. And a little more bad news before we get to the solutions. As stated above, Social Security is going tits up very soon. Medicare, too, regardless of your demographic decline. This never had to be the case. Long after 401ks and IRAs were proven to be vastly superior to Social Security as a means of preparing to retire, long after we knew a similar scheme would produce a healthier elderly population, we kept the Ponzi schemes going. Worse, there hasn't been a real dime, quote, set aside to pay your Social Security or Medicare benefits since the 1960s, or perhaps even earlier. Your government, the one we say is better than all the other governments, stole every last penny and spent it on 90% nonsense to maintain incumbency. The problems were permitted to fester like an infected wound for decades, after we could have fixed the problem painlessly. Note what happens when one or two people in either party, usually GOP, but not always, have a convulsion of honesty and say, we have to fix this garbage. People my age have heard it every single election for the last 50 years. The opposing party, almost always Democrats, with exceptions, say, look, they want to throw grandma off the cliff. They want to take their benefits away. What you can plainly see if you check in every single case where an attempt was made to fix the mess, there was never a suggestion we cut existing benefits. The cries of the peanut gallery were straw arguments, lies, but it was enough every time to kill the reforms. Once in the 90s, we did increase the payroll tax and change the payout ages a little bit to fix the problem. They started taxing the existing benefits also to fix the problem. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in terms of a fix. All they really did was make the inevitable crash of both systems far worse than it needed to be. And that crash is right soon. By the mid-2030s, if we're lucky, both systems will be broken. Every dime paid out will be borrowed or printed by the Fed and then borrowed. The nation will be on the hook for $50 trillion of unfunded liabilities. There will be a new resentment of the elderly among the young, even though it was the political whores in D.C. that caused the issues. And the fixes political whores will put in place will be brutal. They'll have to be, just to keep people alive. Benefits will be slashed. Anyone with an income over a certain amount will have a substantial cut in benefits. Draconian price controls, worse than the manipulation we already see, will be placed on Medicare providers for retirees. Geriatric care will be abandoned by young doctors. The quality and availability of care will plummet. When the damage is done, these same jerk-offs in D.C. who had 50 years to fix the problem, many of whom have been in Congress the whole time, will do a goddamn victory lap. They'll act like fucking heroes. And as evidenced by recent popular behavior, tribal members will celebrate the political whores. If COVID and the illegals issues have proven nothing else, they've proven half of us are lemmings. Solutions. So there's your future. There's nothing you can do to stop it. We had our chance. We didn't educate ourselves. We let the political whores run wild. We blew it. But we can mitigate the pain somewhat, and we can recover as a nation. To do so will require discipline, strength, a sense of purpose that goes beyond what will benefit many of us over the age of 50. We have to rebuild the nation. Adults will have to be adults. There will have to be a stigma attached to being a taker in this new world. Number one, make babies. 20 somethings, start breeding. There is nothing more motivating than seeing mommy's belly growing and knowing you have to produce results. Again, paraphrasing Tucker, having babies before you can afford it will get you doing things you need to do. And forget the two-income family. Unless it's dad with two jobs, live smaller. Husband your resources. While I have participated in the craze, when did a single family home become a necessity for a middle class family or one just starting out? Most of the middle class kids in the town I grew up were raised in twins or row homes, and parents had more kids than we did, way more than young people are having today. If you really must have two incomes, find a job close to home that pays for daycare or forget it. Daycare renders a second income almost useless. Here's an idea: sick kids for your friends who do have jobs, especially friends who did end up with a loser of the father of their children. Number two, raise the babies. Absentee fatherhood will need to result in prison time. As a society, we need to cultivate a healthy, positive image of dad. No more lame excuses. If you're old enough to breed, you're old enough to hold down a job and finish high school if you have to. That means the new daddy will have to take a job in a chrome plant or a mailroom. I did both with a pregnant wife at home. One was low pay, the other one was real grunt work. Or daddy may have to strap on a uniform and work his ass off in his early training in the military to get the stripes. Or he can mow lawns or drive a tool truck. There are millions of unfilled positions in the market. Find one and quit your bitching. Be a role model for your kids. I didn't say be perfect. I know I damn sure wasn't. But letting your kids see you carry on, no matter your income, your kids will have the best possible role model. You may have to forego golf or bar hopping or going to stadiums for games. Watch the games with your kids. Teach them how to track box scores. Tell them stories about your sports heroes in the days of yore. A good dad needs to come home and change the oil and fix the sink. How much beer he can hold or his handicap don't mean a goddamn thing to kids. There will be a time for golf and ball games and the rest when the kids are a little older and you're moving up in your chosen field. And you are going to move up, right? But definitely make those babies. Adopt a growth mindset. In concert with the previous segment, always look to grow. Let's say you end up with a bun in the oven at a young age. Maybe like me, you're not even married. Wherever you land a job, be the best son of a bitch the boss ever hired. Learn the job of the guy who supervises you, and then learn the job of the guy who supervises him. Your loser coworkers will call you a kiss ass, and they can kiss your ass because they don't pay your bills. Be the better man. Growth, always growth, should be your pursuit. Keep an eye on job listings, but find joy in the work you're doing now. Read. Become a better man every day. If you find your work unsatisfying, that's good news. It shows untapped potential. Go to night school, even if it's just one class at a time at community college. I'm not going to apologize for putting all this on the man. Yes, women work. Yes, there are some truly badass women out there. But your kid is better off with a parent in the house raising them well. And women don't do well on oil rigs. And remember what I said earlier about having time to give children quality food and quality time. Kids need a parent in the home, either parent, so long as they have the proper care at home. Can women take non traditional roles? Sure. But if that continues to be the main pursuit of our society, the next generation of Social Security and Medicare recipients will be worse off than I will be when I cash in 4 years from now. And the men will have low sperm counts. But whoever ends up at home raising the kids, while you may not feel it, will have the weight of the nation resting on your shoulders. It will be your work, the product of your work, that will revive what is to become a rather gray, beat up nation. As a society, we need to hold the politicians to the same philosophies of growth that our new dads are living. As a nation, we've done 10 times our due diligence for the takers than we needed to. Don't let your elected representatives continue to be the whores they've been since FDR. And this is where today's retirees figure critically. Pop and Granny, you have the time on your hands to encourage, shame them into it if you have to, your politicians to push economic growth versus gimme gimme programs. We have enough welfare. We have enough green scams. We don't have enough mining, logging, manufacturing, oil rigs, trade schools, cops, firemen, tech, etc. Just tell them to get out of the way. Tell them to get existing regulations out of the way. Growth. It must always be about growth. Growth of wealth, growth of technology, growth of opportunity. Ultimately, it'll be the growth of a new and better nation than the ones we created. We need to make up for our sins so our kids won't have to live off their kids. We have 15 to 20 years to do it, tops. It won't avoid a crash of the entitlement programs. And we, people retired right now, won't benefit. But we need to do it anyway. The one benefit we can extract is the knowledge that we tried our best to fix the world that we screwed up. If the politicians just get out of the way, the next two generations will produce the life we should have produced for them, the life we should have produced for more of ourselves. We would have, but we let the whores squander our treasure. Remember who we are. I often wonder if the present young adult could survive a challenge like World War II or the Great Depression. People in this country lost their minds at the idea of 2,500 people over 20 years being lost in Afghanistan. I thought wasting one life on that dump was too many. But we routinely lost that many in a few days in several battles throughout World War II. How about 25% unemployment and not having 60% of all the things you take for granted several times a day? Take honest stock and ask yourself how you might get through such an experience. The visualization may come in handy someday. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. We are in for some hard times. We need to become the strong men now. And you are correct, not just the men. In order to come out of the demographic and economic abyss we are about to enter, we will need to do that. Learn or relearn what it means to be an American. We have always had a knack for creating good from relative crap, making something out of almost nothing. We are individualists, despite the poison college poured into your ear about America. You need to read up on Jefferson and George Wythe and George Patton. Google Don Mann or Reinhold Messer or Craig McInlay, and then read the source material. The last two aren't Americans. That doesn't matter. Plato and Cicero aren't either, but much of their thinking went into the nation's founding and creating the American ethos. Read them. You need to be the type of person who doesn't give a rat's ass what people think of you, so long as you are doing the right thing. Tell the snakes in DC to start phasing out the old government, quote, retirement system. We have to pay for what we've done, but we don't have to keep the shit in place for our kids and grandkids. Pick an age and an income level to stop putting money into the system. They won't hurt our bottom line very much. Let them pour their money into a mandatory 401k and medical insurance account for catastrophe and old age. By building this type of system, we do accomplish two things. First, we replace investments of boomers and older retirees. They are no longer investing, they're spending mostly. Their investments are being liquidated. We'll talk more about that in coming installments. And our kids and grandkids will enter retirement far more well-to-do than the people who thought Social Security would be their gold mine. For the 40 and 50-somethings, plan on taking Social Security at a later age. You may not have a choice anyway. It needn't ruin your retirement plan. Retirement isn't a matter of age, it's a matter of money. I retired in 2015, and that was very early. I am not rich. Lynn and I live very small. And even the term retired is a misnomer. I work as many hours now as I did then, but for different reasons. One of which is the opportunity to talk to you right now. I really love talking to you. But you might want to do something about that thing on your face. Spend less time in the sun. Cheers.
Please tell a friend about the Free Zone Communiqué. We live and die with the share and subscribe buttons. Please use affiliate and sponsor buttons to support our work. Thank you very much for joining us today.